Elon Musk's unexpected gift to a struggling inventor changes everything. Once upon a time, in the heart of Silicon Valley, where innovation meets ambition, a struggling inventor named Daniel worked tirelessly in his tiny, cluttered garage. Daniel wasn't famous, nor did he have millions in venture capital like so many others around him. He was just an ordinary man with an extraordinary dream, a dream to create something that could change lives. For years, Daniel had poured everything he had into his invention. He had sacrificed sleep, sold most of his belongings, and endured countless failures. But no matter how hard he tried, his breakthrough seemed out of reach. It wasn't just the technical challenges that wore Daniel down, it was the weight of rejection. Investors dismissed him, friends quietly advised him to move on, and even his family started urging him to get a real job. But Daniel refused to give up. He believed, deep in his heart, that his idea had the potential to change the world. All he needed was a chance. One rainy evening, as Daniel sat at his workbench, tinkering with the prototype for the 100th time, a notification popped up on his computer. It was an email, one he almost deleted, thinking it was spam. But the subject line caught his eye. "Your idea deserves a bigger stage." Intrigued, Daniel clicked on it. The message was short but startling. Someone from Tesla had seen a video of his invention online and was impressed. They wanted to know if he'd be open to a meeting. At first, Daniel thought it had to be a scam. Why would anyone at Tesla care about his little project? Still, he replied, half expecting never to hear back. To his surprise, he received a follow-up almost immediately, with details about a meeting at Tesla's headquarters. The email was signed with just one letter, E. The day of the meeting arrived, and Daniel, wearing his only suit, a worn-out one he hadn't put on since college, stood nervously outside Tesla's futuristic glass building. He was intimidated by the sheer scale of it all. Inside, he was ushered into a sleek, minimalist conference room. A few moments later, the door opened, and in walked Elon Musk himself. Daniel froze. He'd never imagined that E could stand for Elon Musk. The billionaire inventor, entrepreneur, and visionary stood before him, smiling with a mixture of curiosity and excitement. "So you're the guy with the big idea," Elon said, breaking the silence. "Let's see it." Hands trembling, Daniel unpacked his prototype, a device that, if successful, could revolutionize how energy is stored and distributed. As he explained the concept, his passion began to shine through, and for the first time in years, someone truly listened. Elon asked detailed questions, occasionally nodding and scribbling notes. By the end of the presentation, he leaned back in his chair, seemingly deep in thought. "You're onto something," Elon finally said. "This could be huge." But he hesitated. It's going to take a lot more work to get it where it needs to be. Daniel's heart sank. He'd heard variations of this line before. But then Elon added something unexpected. "I'd like to help you." Daniel blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "Help me? How?" Elon smiled. "Let's just say I have a little experience with impossible ideas." What happened next would forever change Daniel's life. But before we get to that, let's rewind a bit and dive deeper into who Daniel is, what this mysterious invention does, and why Elon Musk, of all people, decided to intervene in his journey. Daniel could hardly believe what he had just heard. Elon Musk, the man behind Tesla and SpaceX, was offering to help him. It felt surreal, like a dream he'd wake up from at any moment. But Elon was serious. He leaned forward, his gaze steady and full of determination. "Look," he said, "you're not the first person with a groundbreaking idea who feels stuck. I've been there. Sometimes all it takes is the right nudge to turn potential into reality." Over the next hour, Elon listened carefully as Daniel explained how his invention worked. It was a revolutionary energy storage device, compact, efficient, and affordable. If successful, it could bring clean, sustainable power to remote areas, places where electricity was still a luxury. Daniel had developed the prototype after years of trial and error, but the technology was still rough around the edges. Manufacturing was a distant dream, and the funding to make it all happen was non-existent. Elon asked questions that Daniel had never considered, pointing out both strengths and flaws in the design. But instead of dismissing the flaws, he offered suggestions, innovative ways to address them that Daniel hadn't thought of. It was as if Elon could see the invention's future potential far beyond what Daniel had imagined. By the time the meeting ended, Daniel felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. "Here's the deal," Elon said as they stood up. "I'm not going to hand you a blank check. That's not how real progress happens. But I can connect you with the resources, the team, and the support you need to take this to the next level. I want to see you succeed, not just because it's a good idea, but because the world needs it." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. His mind raced with possibilities, but doubt crept in too. Was he really ready for this? Could he handle the pressure of working under someone like Elon Musk? And what if he failed? The following weeks were a whirlwind. Daniel was introduced to Tesla engineers who specialized in energy storage, met investors who were now willing to take a chance on him, and even got access to advanced labs he could only have dreamed of. But the road wasn't smooth. As Daniel worked to refine his invention, he quickly realized just how much he still didn't know. The Tesla engineers, while helpful, didn't hold back when they pointed out flaws in his design. "This needs to be more scalable," one said. "What happens if it overheats?" another asked. The criticism stung, but Daniel knew they were right. If he wanted to succeed, he had to put his ego aside and embrace the learning curve. Meanwhile, word of Elon's involvement in the project began to spread. At first, Daniel was thrilled by the attention. Articles popped up online with headlines like "Elon Musk backs unknown inventor," and "Could this device solve the global energy crisis?" But the spotlight also brought pressure. Critics questioned whether Daniel's invention was too good to be true, while skeptics doubted his ability to deliver on such ambitious promises. The stress began to take its toll. Daniel worked long hours, often forgetting to eat or sleep. His personal life suffered too. Friends and family who had once supported him now worried about his health. "You need to take care of yourself," his sister pleaded over the phone one night. "What's the point of all this if you burn out?" But Daniel couldn't stop. The stakes were too high. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about proving to the world, and to himself, that he was capable of creating something extraordinary. As the months went on, progress was made, but so were mistakes. One prototype overheated during a test, causing a small fire in the lab. Another failed to store energy as efficiently as expected. Each setback felt like a punch to the gut, but Daniel refused to give up. Elon's occasional check-ins kept him motivated. "Failure is just part of the process," Elon reminded him during one particularly difficult moment. "The question isn't whether you'll fail, it's whether you'll learn from it and keep going." Behind the scenes, Daniel also faced another challenge, one he hadn't anticipated. Not everyone in the industry was rooting for him. A few established energy companies, threatened by the potential of his invention, began lobbying against it. They claimed it was unproven, risky, and impractical. Rumors swirled that some were even trying to discredit Daniel personally, digging into his past to find anything that could tarnish his reputation. The pressure reached a boiling point one evening when Daniel received a threatening email. Give up while you still can, it read. You're in over your head. Shaken but defiant, Daniel forwarded the message to Elon, who replied almost immediately. Ignore them. This happens when you're onto something big. Stay focused. With renewed determination, Daniel threw himself into his work. Days turned into weeks, and slowly but surely, the invention began to take shape. Each test brought them closer to solving the problems that had once seemed insurmountable. The team, which had started as skeptical collaborators, now rallied behind Daniel's vision. But as they prepared for the final phase, demonstrating the device to a group of global energy leaders, the tension reached its peak. Everything depended on this moment. If the device worked as promised, it could secure the funding and support needed to bring it to the world. If it failed, all of Daniel's hard work would be dismissed as another pipe dream. On the night before the demonstration, Daniel sat alone in the lab, staring at the device. It was silent, unassuming, and yet it held the potential to change lives. He thought about the years of struggle, the sacrifices, and the people who had doubted him. And he thought about Elon, the man who had seen something in him when no one else did. As he prepared for the big day, Daniel knew one thing for certain. No matter what happened, he had come too far to turn back now. The morning of the demonstration arrived, and Daniel stood in front of a packed room filled with some of the most influential people in the energy industry. Cameras were set up to capture every moment, reporters whispered to one another, and investors sat with expressions that ranged from curiosity to skepticism. Elon was there too, sitting quietly in the back, his arms crossed as he watched Daniel take center stage. Daniel's hands trembled as he began his presentation. He spoke about the journey, how this invention wasn't just a piece of technology, but a mission to bring energy to underserved communities around the world. He explained how the device worked, breaking down complex science into simple, relatable terms. For a moment, he saw a few skeptical faces soften, their brows lifting in cautious interest. Finally, it was time for the live demonstration. Daniel's heart pounded as he stepped to the table where the prototype rested, gleaming under the bright lights. This was it, the moment that would determine everything. He connected the device to a small energy grid model set up in the room. The device was designed to collect energy from a renewable source and store it efficiently, then release it on demand without significant losses. The first part of the demonstration began flawlessly. The device charged from a small solar panel faster than anyone in the room had expected. Whispers spread through the crowd, some leaning forward to see the readings on the screen. Daniel felt a flicker of hope, but he knew the real test was still ahead, the release of stored energy. Taking a deep breath, Daniel triggered the device to discharge. For a split second, nothing happened. The room fell silent, and Daniel felt his stomach drop. Then all at once, the tiny grid model powered up. Lights flickered on, a fan began spinning, and a small electric vehicle prototype rolled forward. The energy transfer was smooth, efficient, and steady. The room erupted into applause. Some people stood, cheering loudly, while others simply shook their heads in disbelief. Reporters scrambled to take notes, and investors whispered excitedly to their colleagues. Daniel could hardly process what was happening. After all the setbacks, all the doubts, and all the sleepless nights, it had worked. Elon stood up from his seat and walked to the front of the room, clapping as he approached Daniel. He placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder and addressed the audience. "This," Elon said, gesturing to the device, "is why we invest in ideas that seem impossible. Because sometimes the impossible becomes reality. This invention has the potential to transform how we think about energy, how we generate it, store it, and distribute it." And Daniel here, he's proof that with enough determination, even the underdog can change the game. For Daniel, it was a moment he'd never forget. In the weeks that followed, offers poured in from companies and governments wanting to partner with him. The headlines shifted from skepticism to praise, calling him the unexpected innovator and Elon Musk's protege. Investors who had once turned him away now lined up to fund the development of his invention. But Daniel didn't let the sudden fame or success change him. He stayed focused on the mission, making clean, affordable energy accessible to those who needed it most. With Elon's mentorship and the resources now at his disposal, Daniel scaled up production, deploying the technology to rural villages and disaster-stricken areas around the world. Years later, as Daniel looked back on that pivotal moment in the Tesla conference room, he couldn't help but feel a mix of gratitude and disbelief. Elon's unexpected gift, his faith in an unknown inventor, had not only changed Daniel's life, but had also sparked a movement toward a cleaner, more equitable future. And for anyone wondering if their ideas are too small, their dreams too ambitious, or their challenges too great, Daniel's story is proof of one thing. Sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you to change everything.